Oh my gosh, we are live. My name is Jonathan Geyer. Uh, I decided to do these live streams to help explain the context behind what I was writing, what I'm able to write in my newsletter. Easy to read deep thoughts is only a tiny portion of what I consider when I'm working through these ideas. If you've ever seen the movie Ghost with making the pot of clay or like pottery shaping something into something good, I don't know, like a pot. That's what I do mentally with each one of these articles. So I start off with a general concept, a rough draft, like a chunk of clay, and then I mold it into something. Hopefully, um, best case is relatable to other people's, beneficial to other people's. Um, Best case, it helps express what I'm thinking. Why? Because it's fun. I hope other people. I feel better when I'm able to maintain, to foster. Maybe that's a better word, to foster this kind of ideology in other people, so I can have somebody to talk with. You know, it's lame thinking of this kind of stuff and this kind of perspective by yourself, right? Like bouncing ideas. Like I'm aware enough to know that I'm not aware. And that's kind of like a paradoxical loop, but it's just how perception works. Okay. I'm going back into it. Oh, background. So I had the opportunity, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years ago, maybe even more. I don't remember. I had the opportunity to sit down and drink a cup of coffee with 30 some odd thousand veterans in our local VA. They were scheduled to come to my office and we talked. We talked about anything. It was basically an information desk. So if the veterans needed something, I helped them connect the dots, or our team helped connect the dots. Well, this newsletter, what I post, essentially my brand online is output. It's a byproduct of these veteran interactions, or the veteran interactions are they're a key part of how I think. This perception that I'm dissecting, analyzing all the veterans, speaking with all the veterans, learning from all these veterans, played a key role into my current state. Right, so I'm going to reference that fair amount uh, throughout this. Um, yeah. Well, in the grand scheme of things, just to summarize that real quick, and then I'm going to get into reading the newsletter. In the grand scheme of things, speaking with 30,000 people, drinking a cup of coffee. So it's not just that we were speaking. I wasn't presenting. I wasn't talking at them, right? They didn't have to do anything. My office was, it was an information desk. It actually was as lame as it sounds. It's just an information desk. The positive part, the thing we won all these national awards for, the thing we were able to save lives, like that's an exact description. We saved lives from this information desk, and it was like a heart to heart connection, right? The national VA asked me to quantify how we were able to help all the veterans, and it took me like, I I still can't say I've achieved what they were asking for, but a lot of what I do now is the output of that national VA request. Like, how are you helping so many veterans? Like, how are you able to do this? And it's essentially, we're all different, So this is a bit of a rabbit hole, and I'm just gonna go on the surface level, and then I'll get back to it. We were able to help them because I adapted my communication style to match whatever they need. Like right now, I'm cognizant that I'm talking fast, and that might jack up some people's anxiety. So maybe it's in my best interest to slow it down. Maybe provide a shoulder to talk to, or just an ear to talk to, or shoulder to lean on, ear to talk to. Like everybody's different. Uh, with that being said, those individual deviations from whatever the normal is, they can be categorized. And we use the DISC framework. I use the DISC framework to categorize those differences in perception. I adapted me to match whatever the veteran needed. So if National VA is watching it all, that's my answer. Like we changed us. The one thing we had control over, we changed us to match them. And how do you teach that? Super hard. Super hard. Or maybe it's really easy. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. It's empathy. Like how do you generate empathy? right? And then empathy comes first, and then it's the um, and I think in visuals. So I'm picturing this like the mechanics of what to do, the empathetic mechanics. Like once you're walking in somebody's shoes, what do you do with that information? Well, there's a mechanical process or a logical process that goes from that. It starts at empathy and then it goes down. Empathy is not very actionable. Like, yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm just gonna get into it. Just gonna get into it. So my new strategy, this is LinkedIn Live 2. My new strategy is to read a paragraph and then maybe provide a little context per paragraph. The original strategy is read all the way through, go back through. Doesn't work like that. I am gonna say it while I'm thinking of it to bypass any of the oh my gosh, I'm a visual thinker now. I'm thinking ohms of resistance and electrical wire to bypass any of the resistance and trying to remember what I was thinking when I originally said it, or when I was reading through it. Yep. Okay, we're going to it. I heard the word frugal used a few times by a few different people last week. It's a good newsletter post. Uh, what does that word mean to you? The dictionary has a definition, which I still haven't bothered to look it up. Why? Because it doesn't matter. I have a general idea. The formalities of definition are both not required for this post, and ironically, the theme of the post. Well, first off, I like that sentence. It sounds cool. I was patting myself on the back a little bit there. So, well, to summarize what I meant by that, I'm not sure how to dive into that. I'm going to go down a little bit rabbit hole, then I'll come back over. High probability, this is going to be a little discombobulated. Whatever, I'm going for it anyway. So, the formalities of definition, that is a big deal. That actually speaks to my last week post, the first LinkedIn Live. Definition matters, right? So, like, I'm trying to think of an example. You read different versions of the Bible. They have it's the same information, but it's written in a different way. It might provide contextual information. It might have a different cover on it. Well, does that matter? Yes, it does. Right? Different dictionaries, different versions of dictionaries describe the same word differently. Does that matter? Yes, it does. The next question would be, why does it matter? It's the same word, and that's this point that I'm expressing right now. That's where most of the American populace is at. Like, if the dictionary says that word, that must be the definition of that word, right? It's very, very surface level, for obvious reasons. It's not like a good or bad kind of thing. Like, you only invest mental energy, your cognitive cycles towards things that matter, and then the goal is to invest less time thinking about the things that matter the least. Right. Well, I highly recommend you think about this one. The definition of words matter. Your definition might be different from my definition. So if I use that word and you use the word, are we talking about the same thing? Nope, we are not, which is super interesting. In my last post, I spoke to a level of depth. I'm kind of making this up as we go. I don't want to reiterate what I did last week, but I think there might be a new audience here, so maybe I should describe anyway. Level of depth. Oh crap! I can't think of another metaphor. So I'm going to use the one I used last week. Are you awake? Are you sleeping? Well, if you apply a level of depth to it, you might be kind of awake and you might be kind of sleeping. When we're talking about the definition of words, we might be talking about let's go ironic. The definition of the word definition. What does that mean? What does it mean when you're defining something? Like, and it's based on perception. I think in visuals. So does the dictionary define stuff for me the same way it defines somebody that doesn't think in visuals? No, it does not. And it's got absolutely nothing to do with the dictionary. Why? Because I am different than the target audience, or high probability I was different than that target audience. So the level of depth, the level of depth that the dictionary provides is very, very surface level. It's very bland. It's the McDonald's, not the made to order fancy restaurant, right? It's all blah. And that actually matters. Okay. Rabbit hole. I'm going to get back into it. Starting at the end, frugal is personally defined. the word can be defined as a can be definitive as a personal measure and one that has no common denominator to any other person's personal variables calculated in their personal definition of frugality. That sentence is too complicated. Next time around, I'm going to smooth that out a little bit. Um, and I think this sentence is just touching on what I previously said. So the definite. Oh, actually, it totally does. The definition of definition. Uh, Actually, that is the theme of this entire post. So, frugality. What does frugal mean to you? What does the definition of frugal mean to you? Right. And I'm using frugal, only frugal, the picture of the fancy yacht and whatnot. I'm only using that to generate like an emotional connection to what I'm saying right now. Why? Because when you say frugal, people have ideas, people have preconceived notions, they have an image, um, they have an entire storyboard built out in their minds of what frugal is. And maybe it came from TV, maybe it came from their parents. Maybe it's logical. Like maybe they learned it along the way and decided that this is what frugal looks like, right? Uh, well, the theme of this post is that this normal thing that most people, I'm going to say most people on planet Earth have this image of frugality, this image of saving, like it's a smart decision, all that stuff. This image is based on personally, I want to say demographics. That's not the word I'm looking for though, but your previous experience, actually maybe it is demographics, where you grew up. What was your family like? What conversations did you guys have at the dinner table? Like all the background information from birth, from conception to now. Are those all these variables? It's an infinite amount of variables. There's no point in listing any of them off, or there's no point in trying to describe like that one matters and that one doesn't. Uh, all the things that went into you up to this point impacted your definition of frugal, and that's the essence. That's the theme that I wanted to express here. Buying a yacht might be frugal. Why? Because it's actually, frugality is a measure of your previous state, and people don't see the previous state. It's impossible for people to see the previous state. You could tell people your previous state. You could tell people where you came from and all the challenges you had and whatever, the things that went into, you can try to get people to relate to you, but it's impossible. Like your version of frugal is going to be different than my version of frugal, which will be different from other people's version of frugal. It's different for everybody. It's impossible for it to not be different for everybody. And the interesting part is we use this word loosely. Hey, going back to the opening paragraph, I heard two people, sure, I heard two people use the word frugal last week, and they were using it. It was the inspiration for this post. They were using it in a way that I thought was odd, or it caught me a little bit off guard. It wasn't how I would have used the word. So then the next step is, why is that? Why are they using it in a way that I wouldn't use that? And that was the seed that planted this thought tree. Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, okay. I am going back to it. Starting at the end. Yeah, starting at the end. Frugal is personally defined. The word can only be definitive as a personal measure and one that has no common denominator. Your version's different than my version. To any other person's personal variables calculated in their personal definition of frugality. I picked the word frugal solely for its ease of communication, and I believe the word naturally paints a default type picture, mental image for most people. The deeper point I would like to share is the definition of frugal is likely not aligned with our mental images for frugality. Yeah, that goes back to, I'm not gonna re-say it, but that goes back to the picture of the boat. Like not buying. If I bought 5 yachts last year and I only bought 4 yachts this year, that is by definition of the word, a frugal move, or frugality. I'm trying to think of the verb there. Yeah, I'm not sure. But that actually is frugal mindset, right? But then you go down to somebody in the middle class that's trying to buy a new lawnmower because the old one broke, and instead they choose to fix the old one. That's a frugal decision. So like those are both frugal. The kicker is that guy that's fixing the lawnmower will probably look at the guy that's not buying I can't remember what I said, but not buying that extra yacht this year. And there's probably some angst, if that's the right word, or maybe there's a disconnect. There's high probability there's a stomach turning thing, a feeling, whatever you would want to call it, from the thought of not buying that different yacht. And yep. Why? Why is that? Super logical, super obvious. There's no hidden information in this observation, right? It's out there for everybody to see. We can all look at that. Why is it the guy that's fixing his lawnmower to be frugal, to save money, to not have to buy it? Why would he look down or be opposed or be adverse to why would he not see the empathetic connection with the guy not buying the yacht? Because technically they might be in the same spot, ideal I can't pronounce it. Yeah. Uh Ideologically, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Uh, their minds might be in the same spot, right? They might be thinking the same things for the same reason, but totally disconnected. Doesn't have to be, or it doesn't have to be that way. It's just yeah, I'm not sure how to tie it together. There's like a natural empathetic disconnect between one and the other, but there's a logical connection and an empathetic disconnection. Yeah. That's confusing. Okay. Example, buying one yacht this year instead of the two yachts we bought last year. Factually frugal, and that's just what I was saying this last time around. Moving our perspective up from the lower level semantics of definition, I think visually. So actually, in my mind, just to empathetically come walk in my shoes for a little bit, in my mind, I actually do like thinking visually. I mentally actually do go above this 2D information. Then I look down on it. Slight deviation here, but in a lot of presentations, like I'm giving this right now, tonight, later on after this presentation, I absorb enough information as I'm given this that I'll kind of like step outside of this first person perspective, and I'll use a third person perspective to watch me talking about this first person perspective. Super confusing to describe, but that's how visual thinking works. So I actually move up from the definitions. I say semantics and definitions. I use that word quite a bit. Moving up from the 2D, what you actually see, moving up from that and looking down. Oh my gosh. Okay. As I was thinking of that, I started thinking of the scientists saying like things are a hologram. That's kind of what we're talking about here. it's a well, yeah. It's I'm tiptoeing around that, but kind of thinking visually, that is what we're talking about here, because the we're living in the hologram theory hypothesis, whatever it is. It's based on 2D information. Then you shine a light up, and then the fuzziness that's up here. There's saying like that's where we live, and the facts support like a 2D structure, but like our perception lives up. Yeah. Well, that's basically what I'm doing right here. The semantics of the definition is the 2D structure. The reality is we live up here in the fuzziness, like the glow of this hologram of perception, this hologram of definition, because it's not actually what's written. Yeah. I might write another post on that when I've had more time to simplify this down, get it down to E equals MC squared. Yeah, which takes a while. Okay. Moving our perspective up from the lower level semantics of definition, all sorts of well accepted, standard, common type human perception concepts become questionable. Why do you think the way you think? Spoiler alert, that's going to be the theme of most of my posts. Why? Because that's where my life is. Like, that's where I spend my time thinking. Why do I think the way that you think? Or why do I think the way that I think? And then the next step is, why do you think the way that you think? Then why do you think the way you think about what I think and the way I think it? Like it's there's like playing chess. I say I think a few moves ahead of time. Oh my gosh, there's going to be a slight deviation. I'm going to skip over that. We'll save that post for a different day. What we're talking about here is me empathetically walking in your shoes and then looking backwards at me. What does that look like? Um, yeah. No, no, I'm gonna skip over that one. Moving up the perspective from the lower level semantics and definition, all sorts of well accepted, standard, common type human perception concepts become questionable. Question everything, right? And that's just how cognitive biases work. Who's got cognitive biases? Everybody. Like that's definition. Now I'm picturing like terms of matter. You have the matter you can see, and then you have all the atoms, the quantum that makes up the matter you can see. What we're talking about is the quantum here. Everybody sees the matter and then they're like, hey, I can see that, so then it must be true. Nope, that is not how things work. Like everything is atoms. Whatever you're seeing, that you're not seeing the atoms in your hand. You're seeing the visual of the hand itself. That's a perception thing. The reality is you are seeing the atoms. Like it looks like a hand. We think it's a hand. We don't think about the atoms. Like it's counterintuitive. It's not natural to view this as a collection of atoms, but the reality is it's a collection of atoms. Like undeniable, case closed, close the book. It's a cloud of atoms. But our perception says it's a hand, and we say it's a hand, and life goes on just fine. That's what I'm talking about here. That is not real. Like it's a hologram of perception. Oh, LA, that ties all back together. It's a hologram of perception. The real thing is this 2D structure, whatever you'd want to call it. We live up here in the cloud of perception. I'm not sure what they call it in the hologram theory or whatnot, but whatever this illuminous kind of the above the 2D structure, that's actually where human perception works, right? Uh, yeah, yeah. Okay, moving on. Um, Specifically, frugal is a verb or used or understood best as a verb, independent from any visual output or conclusion. Equal output could be anything, and that speaks to what I just tried describing using the hologram visual. Oh my gosh, I I think in visuals, right? So I'm actually picturing the hologram, and I'm actually picturing the 2D translucent structure with the light shining underneath, and then I'm trying to get it on camera, the hologram up here. Like that's what I'm picturing right now, and I'm solving problems. Like I'm thinking of what to say next from this visual structure that I have in my mind. But I'm trying to express that to you. Super tough, super tough. Maybe I'll have my daughter draw some pictures or some sort of visual. Yes, there is no factual reason at all to have a preconceived image of frugality when the word frugal is used, but there's a high probability everybody reading this post still has a preconceived image for their personal definition of frugality. Why? It's the deep thought part of this post, and I touched on that earlier. Your version of frugal is different than my version of frugal, and it's impossible for that to be any different. Like it is guaranteed. It is 100%. It is. I make fun of people for using absolutes. It is absolutely true that your definition of frugal is not my definition of frugal, and at the same time, it still is. Why? Because real life, everything has depth. Every word has depth. Every observation has depth. Touching on what I said in my first post, like this is why the legal system works the way it is. Nothing is as it seems, right? And that's not a new thing. It's been like that forever. Like that's how human beings work, right? Any other conclusion is simplifying it, kind of like E equals MC squared. Well, there's a lot going on with that tiny little simple, easy to read equation. And that's what we're talking about right here. Everything you see, everything like all the first response emotional kind of stuff, that's all surface level. It's way deeper. You see the hand, not the atoms in the hand. But this is just atoms. Like it's not a hand, it's a cloud of atoms. Right? That is the functional reality. That is the 2D structure. This being a hand, as we want to call it, this hologram thing is confusing. I'm just using it to describe the visual that I have going on in my mind. But this is a cloud of atoms. It's not a hand. Hand is this perception, this overlay that we put on top of this cloud of atoms, so it makes more sense. Yeah. Go down to the cloud of atoms. Everything is atoms. Don't see the whiteboard behind me. See the atoms that encompass, that create this whiteboard. It's just like a different kind of perception. Oh my gosh, I just out of the matrix. See the stuff coming down the screen. Don't see the images. It actually works like that. Yep. Okay. I don't remember where I'm at. There is no factual reason at all to have a preconceived image of frugality when the word frugal is used, but high probability everybody reading this post has a preconceived image. My conclusion is complex. I just tried describing it. My conclusion is complex and awesome. Why? Because this stuff's fun. Awesome to think about. This personal definition and the perception of the word frugality and our mental image the word inspires is 100% personal. It is impossible to be agreed upon. I touched on that just a second ago, but that is super interesting. What does that mean? What does that mean that on the lower levels of sematics, the words that we use don't mean the same thing? Frugal in this culture, I'm in Minnesota, frugal in Minnesota and frugal in Texas might be two different things, right? Frugal in Minnesota, frugal in California might be two different things, or New York or whatever. Frugal over in Australia, I'm just picking up country, making stuff up here, but it's there's the level of depth of the word itself, and it's not even the same word is not the same word in different locations, right? You change the environmental variables and this word changes. You change the output. Okay, well now I'm picturing this visually again. I'm picturing two gears working together. Like the definition is a gear, and then the environmental variables are a gear. If you change this outer gear, it changes the inner gear. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter where we write the definition for frugal down. You change these other variables, these environmental or contextual variables. I'm not sure how to say that. You change these outer variables, you change the output, it changes the input. Is that paradoxical? Maybe. Yeah, but that's actually how it works. So then what are we talking about? Right? What when you're talking to me, what are you talking about? When I'm talking to you, what am I talking about? And the assumption is the interesting part is we actually communicate useful information from each other, or, back and forth. But the reality is this 2D structure, the atoms in my hand, the reality is we are not talking about the same thing. Like something in our perception allows us to take this factual information of a cloud of atoms and turn it into a hand. Like the definition of frugal is a hand. The reality is it's a cloud of atoms. Like, why do we see frugal? Like, why are we able to? And I'm using frugal just because it's relatable. You can swap out frugal with any word in the dictionary. That's the higher level point I'm trying to express here. Like it's all words are open to interpretation. Super interesting. What's that mean? What do you do with that information? Anything. Okay. I'm almost out of time. My conclusion is complex and awesome to think about. This personal definition and perception of the word frugality and the mental image the word inspires is 100% personal. It is impossible to be agreed upon. What else works like this? Everything works like this. My use of the word everything is exposed to the same functionally speaking, we could be talking about a cognitive bias, but I'm not talking about a cognitive bias. This is something totally different. Like saying my hand is a cloud of atoms is not a cognitive bias. It's a level of perception. It's a type of perception. I'm picturing this on like the electromagnetic spectrum, where visible light's just a tiny little section, and then you have gamma rays and radio waves or whatever. This hand being a hand and not a cloud of atoms is a measure of this electromagnetic spectrum of perception. Like perception has a spectrum. Oh my gosh, we only got 40 seconds left here. Prime takeaway. Everything else works like this. All words are independent when filtered through individual perspectives and individual cognitive biases. What you personally hear or read is not what others will hear, read, or think after hearing, reading, or thinking on the same topic. Perception, unmitigatable deviations of definition. 10 seconds left here. what you see and what I see are not the same thing, but we still agree. So what does that mean? What are we actually agreeing on? Yeah, super interesting. Hey, this is awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm out of time. Yeah. Have a great day. Thank you. Oh, I don't know how to stop it. Oh my gosh. Here we go. See you guys next week. Sweet.